His was the shrug that was seen around the world last night and gave voice to a lot of people who just suffered a bad beat. You could say the Cleveland Browns suffered one as well. He is none other than ESPN SportsCenter Scott Van Pelt, midnight Eastern host, and so much more. Back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Scott?
I'm better than the Browns +3.
I got to be honest with you, Scott. And I me being an NFL employee, I don't really.
Of course.
And this is true. I really don't pay attention to that sort of stuff. I don't. I might have been one of the few Americans watching that final dipsy-do or whatever you called it in your highlight reportage afterwards. What did you call that play again when you were doing the highlights afterwards?
Rich, that play is called pitchy woo woo. I invented the term. It's the woo woo.
Yes.
My friends and I, for reasons
Yes.
I honestly don't know, is the gambling term we invented decades ago to describe the play where like something horrible happens at the very end of a game. Where you get crushed, some horrible bad beat. And then the pitchy thing is this new horrible trend where teams, and Northwestern really, I think, gave birth to it against Ohio State years ago, where Brent Musburger famously said, some people are saying, you've got to be kidding me, because they started pitching the ball around, which, by the way, it makes sense. It's the only thing you can do to have any hope. But inevitably what happens is in pitchy woo-woo is people start chucking the ball all over the place, and they go 40 yards backwards, and then the defense just falls on it for a touchdown. And last night, the pitchy woo-woo resulted in a safety.
Which, again, unbeknownst to me, because I just decided many, many moons ago not to even pay attention to it, to even be attracted by any shiny object that friends tell me should be a shiny object worthy of my attention financially. I just don't pay attention to that sort of stuff. And then game over, then you show up and you just shrug, just like you just give a shrug. And I realized on the spot, oh, God. That's when I texted you, Brockman, right?
Oh, yeah.
I said to you, like, did that mean something?
Sure did.
Scott, that was amazing.
Here's the thing, Rich.
Yeah.
Let's just be like, I understand. I appreciate the fact that you don't pay attention, and
Yes.
I also know that not everybody is enamored with the topic. But many moons ago, I decided to deal with the elephant in the room, because many people do. A lot of people bet on sports, and as we have seen, particularly over the last 12 months, 24 months for sure, the pendulum has swung in the direction of it being legalized more places. And the NFL has softened its stance to a degree, but they still haven't come all the way full circle.
Yes.
And so as a result, out of sort of respect for the fact that the league doesn't fully embrace, even though they have a team in Vegas and teams have official gambling partners and sponsors, which is a fun trick, I at least am a little bit more tongue-in-cheek about how I refer to it, hence a shrug, which you say nothing, but you say everything in that moment, right?
You sure did, Scott. You sure did. So walk me through how you're watching the end of that game on your set. Walk me through it.
The minute that because I'm looking at the clock, and see, this is terrible, okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Anybody that we always call ourselves degenerate gamblers. Let's just call it, we're just gamblers, right?
Sure.
Any gambler looks at the clock when Tucker comes out, and you think, how long does it take to kick from 55? 7 seconds. No, there's going to be time left on the clock when he makes this kick.
That's what you're thinking when Tucker's coming out? That's what you're thinking when Justin Tucker's. That's what you think when Justin Tucker's coming out. That's what you're thinking.
Well, I think that's because I know Justin Tucker's making the kick because he's the best kicker in football.
Sure.
So I'm already working off the presumption he's making this, and there's going to be time on the clock. And just so we're clear, I have no action on this game. It doesn't impact my life at all. I'm just thinking, content-wise, we could be looking at a horrendous ending here. And so the minute he makes it, there's 2 seconds left, and you go, well, here we go. Because Cleveland's not going to return it. And then there's going to be 2 seconds left, and what are they going to do? Well, they're going to start pitchy woo-woo. And before you know it, like the thing about that play, Rich, is that inevitably in 5 to 10 seconds, you're 20 yards backwards. Like it never advances. It is incumbent upon 1,000 things going wrong for the other team, but they never do. And so you just end up you've got 25 yards to work with. So very quickly you're on your 5, and linemen are involved, and you're hoping somebody wearing a number that starts with a 7 doesn't have his hands on the football. And that never happened last night, but you could see it coming a mile away. And, when Landry ends up with it in the end zone, I'm just like, oh, heavens to Betsy, these poor people who. And by the way, it was going to be a push.
Right.
So, after all that game, which best game of the year, spectacular, riveting action, and that's the main topic of conversation for our show, is what a phenomenal game we got, and Lamar coming out on 4th and 5, impossibly, and all of that. But then the fact that incredible game, division rivals in Cleveland, all of it, ends like that is just this perfect little cherry on top of the sundae.
Scott Van Pelt here on the Rich Eisen Show, and you are spot on. I mean, what a game it was, and it ended with a gambling anomaly with the safety that meant absolutely nothing because of the aforementioned, as you said, pitchy woo-woo, that type of play that goes down. And then we saw all those rushing touchdowns, 9 of them that tied some record that happened, after Arnold Rothstein had 8 men out and all that sort of stuff. And, and Lamar taking the lead and then Baker taking it back and then Lamar disappearing. So I ask you, sir, in the middle of all this, what do you think was, in fact, the, if you will, pitchy woo-woo that was happening with Lamar in the locker room in the fourth quarter?
I saw your tweet about something about maybe the second time they'd gone for 2. Is that how you tweeted it?
Successfully went for 2, because that is what happened after he emerged. He himself said, "I didn't have a Paul Pierce moment." God bless Paul Pierce. The guy's he's got a Hall of Fame career, and the reigning MVP references him as the guy who pooped his pants. I mean, this is not the best thing to be known for, and yet that was how he was. He was referred to in that moment. I would say yes.
Let's just say this, and we're being children right now.
That's why we're doing this. Yes.
I'm more than willing to come along for the ride and be a child. That sideways strut towards the locker room was not the strut of a man; it was cramping. It was the strut of a man that had what we call the green apple quick step. Okay. That's the green apple quick step.
You know what? The one moment that sealed it for me was when somebody was standing in the doorway of the locker room and Lamar basically gave the guy the arm movement of "get the hell out of the way, I got to get in there,"
Yes. Very quickly, sir, you need to move because I have things to tend to. But all right, I'll continue to indulge this conversation.
Please, Scott.
That was, I think, listen, let's be honest. We've all been there. I mean, I'm letting you into the warped mind of Van Pelt here with the terms that I use to describe things. It's a poop panic attack. We've all been there. You've got to. It's like you're seized with terror. You've got to find the toilet.
Yes.
It's okay. It happens to everybody. But if that happens, Rich, that's a quick moment and it's over.
Yes.
Like it passes. He was gone for quite a while. So. I don't know. That's why the cramping actually it holds water for me.
Well, in terms of
if he couldn't hold his.
Well, because the cramping, that part of it that does hold water is okay. 2 things. One is that if it was such an urgent moment, he should have been back well before the the second to last possession of the game for him, and then also. This is a guy, Lamar Jackson, who on this very show, Scott, showed that he cannot shade the truth. When I asked him how things appeared more difficult offensively for him this season, he's like, yes, the defenders are calling out our plays sometimes. And I, followed up after that to make sure that, my simple question did not burn a bridge, torch it over the River Kwai with the Ravens, that this is who he is. He's just a guy who just speaks the truth, just go and floats through life, as a Heisman Trophy winner, MVP winner. And maybe he was basically telling the truth, but poor Paul Pierce just sitting around saying, "I'm watching a football game. What's happening right now?"
Imagine that. Imagine that. You're Paul Pierce. You're a Hall of Famer. You're sitting around. You're watching a game like everybody in America probably is, sports fan, and then you got to hear that.
Yes.
Like that's how I got to get referenced tonight. I mean,
gosh.
okay. I guess I'll have to deal with it. But my God, what a game! And Rich, I mean, and this is kind of inside the Beltway from a TV perspective, but you have the tease, the 2-minute tease. There's a 2-minute warning.
Yes.
They come to me just to say, here's what we got coming up when this game ends.
Yep.
And sometimes, too many times, sadly, the game's out of reach, and you're just sort of saying, hey, you're begging people not to turn the television off. But in this moment, everything's still on the line. It's about to be a fourth down, and my producer's in my ear saying, holy bleep, like Jackson's back on the field, and I'm saying, and they're like, all right, 30. So there's this countdown, and I'm saying, is he in the huddle or is he on the field? He's like, I'm not sure. I'm like 10, 9. He's like, Jackson's in the huddle. I'm like, holy. So we're coming for this. Suddenly there's an urgency to this, which is all right, after this incredible game, yada, yada, yada. And Lamar Jackson is back on the field, handed to Levy, and he's like, it's 4th and 5, and he's in the huddle. It was this impossibly dramatic moment. And then, of course, he throws the touchdown, and then, and we weren't done from there. So all of this, absent what happened in that last play of the game last night, was as captivating an NFL game as we've had all year, which, is the treat we all are hoping for.
I got to admit to you, Scott Van Pelt, I'm sitting there, I'm watching your, the post-game show, and in which, by the way, Lisa Salters asked Lamar if he had anything left in the tank. Was that on purpose? I got to find that out. I mean, what a way to pose that question.
The legendary John Sawatsky interviewing technique. I mean,
right.
if I missed
no
that
yes
part,
or no
there
questions.
were anecdotes for having had a bathroom accident. I don't know. I didn't get that in the interview.
No, but I got to. I'm sitting there watching your post game show, and not many times in my current state of what I'm doing these days do I sit there and miss doing a highlight. You know what I mean? Like I don't sit around and sit there and say, man, what a great game. I wish I was doing the highlight. Watching you do the highlight last night made me feel that way. And how, to me, Scott, the way you do it and your show in our world, I'm going to get serious with the TV talk here. In our world where everybody assumes that all executives assume you've seen everything already in the palm of your hand because of what's going on Twitter and everything, that there's no use to stroll us down the way something that we just watched happened. I think that's a bunch of crap. That's why your show is crucial in my mind in many different ways and the way you do it. I was sitting there going, man, I wish I was doing this highlight right now, watching you do it last night.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that. And I appreciate it. But having done it as well and as long as you have, that nobody that loves sports is bummed out to revisit that highlight. Nobody. Like no one's sitting there at 12 o'clock thinking, well, I just watched this incredible game. You know what I don't want to do? I don't want to hear any more about that. I'm right.
Yeah.
You're sitting there going, holy crap, did that just happen? I want to watch it again. And some highlights are just highlights. But as you know, games like that move you the way sports can move you when they're at their best, you don't have to fake the enthusiasm. You can channel your inner Stuart Scott and just be moved by the content, and that's what last night's game really was. So and it means a lot to hear you say that because you've done this for many years, as have I, and so when you're sitting there thinking this would be a fun highlight to do, I'll tell you, you're right. that was a fun highlight to do.
I mean, so much going on in that game with just the way it started, the way it went back and forth, the way it ended. So before I let you go into the day, I mean, it sure looks like Lamar's back, like the Lamar that can go vertical, the Lamar that he slinged it around when he got it back after Baker Mayfield took the lead, again. Or to tie the game again, and he was running. He got 100 yards rushing. I mean, the MVP of 2019, I think for the first time all year, showed up last night, and the Browns are now officially, you could say, not the Browns of old. So, what to make of the aftermath?
I agree with both those things. The Ravens And I asked Louis Riddick and Brian Greasy about it. I mean, and there's a bit of cliche in the idea of competitive spirit and the idea of what being a pro looks like. But I think the Ravens demonstrated both those things, right? You've got to have this game, and they figured out a way to win that game. And you look at their schedule, and it feels favorable. The problem for the Ravens, in my opinion, is just that the AFC is so crowded that there are more good teams than there are spots available for those good teams. So that becomes the challenge for the Ravens, most notably. But for Cleveland, and Louis Riddick, who played for them and has a connection to the city, said, and I agree, that what happened last night, like, this isn't about years ago and Ernest Biner fumbling and years of quarterbacks that weren't good or whatever. But none of that has anything to do with last night. They played a hell of a football game and they lost. But they played the kind of a game, and Baker Mayfield played the kind of a game where if you were going to face them in the playoffs, you would think, this is not going to be a whole lot of fun, because they were capable of answering every time they had to answer. So I think what you saw were two excellent football teams that played the game of the year, and it felt every bit like a playoff game. And it ended with people pitching it all over the field, and a bonus 2 points at the end that gave us a fun little segue to our goofy little show.
Scott,
so, wins all around.
Man, it was great last night, watching the game and then seeing you do your thing, and that's why I wanted to have you on to chit-chat about it, get your perspective day after. Thanks for the call. I know you got your podcast to do and being all sorts of Van Pelty, so thank you for the call.
Appreciate you, my friend. Happy holidays to you and yours. And as always, I appreciate you being out there watching. As you always know, we're doing the same with you guys. So it's just a big, giant love, and I'm hugging you from afar.
Attaboy. Thank you, Scott. That's Scott Van Pelt at Not the Fakes SVP right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.